Hello everyone, my name is Dominique Clark and I'm going to tell you about the time our family took a trip to the Buffalo Zoo. It was actually just this past weekend and I was able to get a lot of good pictures for this assignment. It's a really good spot to go on a family trip if you're a low-income family like we are, and it's really big and it's a lot of fun. We saw animals both big and small, but I figured I'd work small and work our way up to the bigger ones. One of the exhibits we saw was this really big fish tank full of a lot of different colored fish that were really tiny. Now they weren't as cool as seeing what piranhas look like up close, which were very huge, but this was still an interesting exhibit to witness firsthand. One of the buildings they had was for desert-themed animals and creatures, and this was a really good shot I got of one of their desert bunnies. It was in this cage with a glass wall around it, with little desert lizards running around and some birds, and it was a really neat exhibit to see what exactly lives out in the desert compared to what lives near home. Of course, they had a reptile room that had many varieties of snakes and frogs and turtles. This was one of the really good pictures I was able to get of a snake. Next door to it, they were supposed to have an anaconda on display, but she was out for surgery that day, so we didn't get to see her. But this snake was still really pretty, and so were the other ones. The picture of this blue poisonous dart frog looks really big, I'm sure, but in reality, it's actually no bigger than a penny. They're really tiny, but I was able to capture this picture, and it was very beautiful. I love frogs, and they had blue ones and these little white spotted ones, and they were really pretty, and they were in the reptile room with snakes. Another animal we saw were a pen full of goats. They have this little mountain area they built for them so they can climb up and down it, and the entranceway into their little den where they sleep and live is like an entranceway to a cave, and it was really neat that they went out of their way to build like a natural territory for these animals to live in. It's really cool. This is a picture of our oldest daughter, Melanie, at the zoo. She had to stop and look at all the little gadgets and gadgets across the park, and she had a really great time. This was actually a really great learning experience for both of our girls, and it was nice to see them have a really good time, and they had smiles on their faces the entire family trip. This one was the gorilla. Unfortunately, while we were there, he was sleeping, and he's in the middle of that picture on the ground. But still, even though he was sleeping, you could tell from a distance how big he really was, and he was huge. I wouldn't want to make him angry, but he was still a sight to behold, and I love his little habitat they made for him. They had a pen with, I think it was 3 zebras in it, and they were really pretty to see up close. We got lucky and we were able to capture a video of one zebra walking behind a bush at the same time the other zebra was walking out the other side. So on video it looks like a really cool magic trick. And the zebras, they're pretty good size and they're very beautiful creatures. We saw a couple of these big fellas, the crocodiles, and this picture I got of him was really good. The whole time we were watching him, he kept his eyes on us and he looked like he was really hungry, and he was really big. We also saw another one underneath a bridge we were standing on in the rainforest habitat, and that was neat. Right out in front of the zoo, they had an exhibit with 2 polar bears in it. Unfortunately, we didn't get there in time to see the polar bear cubs, but still seeing the adults was amazing. This one stayed in the pool the entire time, while the other one was over at the window playing with people that were tapping on it, and that was really cool that they're so interactive. This is our youngest daughter, Alana, at the zoo. She's smiling even though she doesn't want to in this picture because she was a little upset that we had to take a break for her to get a diaper change and we had to get lunch. But she had an amazing time even though she didn't sit still long enough to eat anything while we were there. She loved the kitties. They had, I couldn't count how many seals they had, but they had a few. And the exhibit they're in is surrounded by bleachers, and now I understand why. It's really hard to get a picture or a video of them because they're constantly swimming around their pen in circles and they only pop up for a few brief seconds, so you gotta be really quick. I got lucky. This was one of the pit stops at the zoo that both of our girls wanted to stop at. They're both pretending to be gorilla trainers in this picture, and they fit that really good. They looked really cute and they had a lot of fun. They also hopped in the Arctic blast with their daddy, so they got a blast of cold air and they looked like they had a really good time. This was one of the birds they had in the rainforest exhibit, and this exhibit was really cool because it was an area you could just walk in, everything was out in the open, birds could touch you if they wanted to. This was my favorite exhibit, and they had a lot. And the simulation of how it would be like to be in a rainforest, that was amazing. This is my husband Josh. He always does goofy things in his pictures. And at the zoo, we came across a rhinoceros statue next to the rhinoceros pen. And he just had to decide to make it look like he was skewered by the rhinoceros. Later on, him and the girls sat on it for a picture. And that was a really great moment to remember. This was one of the monkeys that was also in the rainforest exhibit. As you can see from the picture, the monkeys were the only animals that were enclosed so you couldn't have contact with them. A couple of the monkeys actually jumped on the cage right by my face when I was recording videos, so I got some really good shots of that. They were really cute. It only cost us $2 to ride on that train. Unfortunately, it was just me and Melanie and Alana. Josh had to wait with our stuff, but it was still a fun ride. And since nobody was waiting in line, we got an extra run around the park. And that train ride was really cool, and the girls had a great time on it. Other than giraffes, this was one of the biggest animals we saw at the zoo, and it was the elephant, and the whole time we were watching him, he was just standing there, swaying side to side. It looked like he was dancing. And this must have been what our baby girl liked the most, because the whole ride home, elephant, elephant, it was fun. Well, as you can see, the Clark family had a really great family trip at the Buffalo Zoo, and it's something we look forward to doing again in the future, especially after they get their Arctic exhibit built. I'd love to go back and see that. And I'm ending this with an Indian proverb that was up at the Buffalo Zoo that I thought was very interesting. Thank you.